You don't need more power. You need to lose the voice that keeps lying to you. Because until your pride dies, your purpose can't breathe. Pride hides in silence. It doesn't scream for attention. It quietly convinces you that you already know enough. It tells you you're right. Even when you're lost, it keeps you blind, but makes you feel wise. And if you're not careful, pride will dress itself as strength. It will make you resist help when you're drowning. It will make you walk tall on broken bones. You were never meant to carry yourself alone. But pride hates surrender. It resists bending. It dies slowly, unless you kill it deliberately. And make no mistake, your destiny is not delayed by your circumstances. It's delayed by the part of you still pretending you don't need to change. The part of you that holds your breath every time the truth comes too close. But if you want freedom, you'll have to let that part die. Because purpose does not live in the same room as pride. You've prayed for clarity. You've asked for direction. But what if the answer has been the same all along? Lower yourself, not in weakness, in wisdom. Pride convinces you that control is safety, but it's not. Control is a cage. You've learned to decorate, and you've lived long enough behind the mask of strength. The truth is, you're exhausted from holding it all together, from acting like nothing affects you, from pretending you don't need grace. But humility doesn't make you small, it makes you free. Because when you kneel, you finally release the weight that was never yours to carry. Pride resists what it can't understand, but purpose begins with what you can't control. And until you lay down the crown you gave yourself, you'll never feel the power that comes from surrender. The kind of power the world can't offer. The kind of strength that doesn't scream, it just stands. Even when the storm doesn't end. Some of your battles were never about others. They were about your unwillingness to admit you're not God, that you need help, that you were wrong, that your heart hardened. Because you confused being numb with being strong. But numbness is not power, and silence isn't wisdom when it's rooted in fear. You've trained yourself to be untouchable, but you're not supposed to be untouchable. You're supposed to be transformed. That requires honesty, painful honesty. The kind that breaks your voice when you try to speak. The kind that makes you sit in silence best. You're afraid of what might come out, but that's where it starts. That's the place where your real life begins. Because purpose can't live in who you pretend to be. It can only grow where you allow yourself to be broken, then rebuilt by something greater than your ego. And the longer you avoid that process, the longer you delay the version of you the world desperately needs. Let's be honest, you don't want growth. You want glory. You don't want discipline. You want recognition. You say you're chasing purpose, but you're still obsessed with being seen. And that's the trap. The desire to be admired will keep you addicted to applause. Even when your soul is screaming for something real. You know it, you feel it. That pull toward depth, toward quiet obedience, toward the kind of life that doesn't look impressive, but builds a foundation hell can't shake. You won't find that in performance. You won't find it in status. You'll find it in the moments. No one claps for in the sacrifices. No one sees. In the obedience that costs you comfort. That's where pride dies. And purpose breathes. Not when you're worshipped, but when you're willing to be invisible. Not when you're celebrated, but when you're consistent in the dark. The ones who change the world are the ones who don't need the world to know their name. There is a voice inside you that you've been ignoring. Not because it's wrong, but because it scares your ego. It tells you to let go, to forgive, to step down from your throne of judgment. But pride won't let you. Pride wants you to hold on to offense like it's protection. It wants you to believe that bitterness is strength. But it's not. It's poison. And you've swallowed it so long you think it's part of who you are. But you weren't made to carry wounds like trophies. You were made to be healed. And healing starts where pride ends. You cannot serve both your pain and your purpose. One must die. And when you finally lay down the right to be right, you make room for something eternal. A peace that doesn't need permission. A purpose that can't be shaken by ego. You've prayed for doors to open. But what if the doors are already unlocked, and it's your pride that refuses to walk through them? You want miracles, but you don't want to follow instructions. You want breakthrough, but you resist correction. You say you want change, but not if it costs your image. This is where most people stop. They reach the edge of transformation, turn back, because it requires surrender. But you are being called to go deeper, beyond surface faith, beyond shallow belief, into a place where obedience is louder than desire, where discipline walks you into rooms that talent can't keep you in, and where you learn that humility isn't thinking less of yourself, is thinking about yourself less, long enough to hear something greater, to follow something higher, to live for something eternal. You've been waiting to feel ready, but purpose doesn't wait for feelings. It responds to obedience. And the longer you wait to feel worthy, the longer you delay your assignment. Pride tells you you're not enough, but it also tells you you don't need help. It traps you in isolation and calls it strength, but you weren't made to walk alone. You weren't made to fight every battle in silence. You need people. You need truth. You need a power that doesn't come from within, but from above. And to access it, you have to drop the act. Drop the self-made image. Drop the lie that says, I've got this. You don't. And that's not weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. When you finally admit that, you can't build purpose on your own. You allow something divine to take over. And that's when mountains move. You keep asking for clarity, but clarity only comes after surrender. As long as pride leads the way, your vision will stay blurred, because pride isn't loud. It's blinding. It tells you that you already know the way. It tells you to trust your own voice above all others. But if your own voice led you here to confusion, exhaustion, restlessness, maybe it's time to listen to a voice that sounds like truth. Truth doesn't flatter you, it wounds you. But it's a wound that heals. It's the kind of pain that removes what's false. Something real can take its place. You've spent your whole life building walls, but you can't see the horizon from behind stone. Tear it down. Let the pride that kept you safe comb the rubble beneath your foundation, because what you build next will be rooted in something unshakable. There's a version of you that hasn't been born yet. The one who walks in purpose. The one who doesn't perform for approval. The one who wakes up with fire, not fear. But that version is hidden beneath layers of pride. And pride doesn't die in comfort. It dies in the fire, in the silence, in the moment you say, I can't do this alone. That's the doorway, not to weakness, but to power. A power that doesn't crumble when you're criticized, that doesn't retreat when you're overlooked, that doesn't quit when you're misunderstood. That's purpose, and it starts with surrender, with laying down your agenda, your image, your timeline, your pride. You're not behind. You're just being stripped of everything that can't go with you. Let it fall away, because the real you, the chosen you, is waiting on the other side of this death. This is the moment, the one where you decide who leads your life, your pride, or your purpose. You don't need another sign. You don't need a perfect plan. You need to bow, not to defeat, but to destiny. Not to shame, but to grace, because humility is not the end of your strength. It's the beginning of your power. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you start carrying authority. Not the kind the world gives, but the kind that shifts atmospheres when you speak, that calms storms when you move, that endures fire without flinching. But you cannot hold that kind of purpose and still protect your pride. One must die, so choose. Kill the pride within and watch the doors that were sealed shut swing open with fire. Not because you forced them, but because you were finally empty enough of something holy to enter.